Hi again, it's Randal, and today we're going to talk about the general experiences and mental health coming out of lockdown. Now, past few months has been a roller coaster for all. Me personally, what I experienced during the initial phases of lockdown, I thought I would handle it a lot better than I actually did. And I think that was because prior to coming to Volunteer for Anxious Minds last July, up until June 2019, because I've been suffering such severe depression, anxiety, I'd been basically stuck in the house in isolation for 6 years. So I thought maybe it would be easy to readjust to that. But actually what I found was I'd become so used to coming in, volunteering, making the videos, the general socialization, to have all that taken away, it really threw us for a loop. And it was a setback. I experienced great difficulties in sleeping pattern, went all over the place, wasn't able to eat on a regular basis, personal care went downhill. I started to regress to the state that I'd been in previously, but because I'd had this opportunity to sort of make the most of the difficulties I'd been through, to help other people via these videos, or hopefully that's what we're trying to do. What I found was that it was difficult to go back to coping, being alone, with that anxiety, with that stress, adjusting to a new reality day to day. And there are links between quarantine and mental stress. I don't know if anybody remembers the 2003 SARS outbreak in Toronto, but a substantial portion of those people who are at quarantine develop PTSD and depression because of it, because you're not supposed to live like that. You're not supposed to be isolated. Fair enough, we've got technology now which lets you get in touch with people. You can Zoom, you can Teams, you can Skype, you can WhatsApp, but there's a huge difference in a face on a screen to actually being in the presence of somebody else, and with sort of nothing to do all day. But it seemed like, there was everything to do. It was, you go in with these big ambitions, I'm going to learn a new language, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I know a lot of people went out cycling. The amount of bikes that was sold went up 60% in April based on the same figures last year. So it was really, when you were allowed to get out of the house for an hour a day, maybe going for a walk or cycling. But beyond that, there wasn't a lot of routine. And when you don't have your regular routines, everything kind of starts to fall apart. So to start with, as I said, I thought I'd be able to manage it, but as it went along, I found more and more sort of personal difficulty. And as I've already touched upon, regression in negative thought patterns and negative routines. So, that's how it felt to be isolated, to be unsure of the future. How long is this going to last? What's going to happen? How serious is this outbreak? As we're finding out in recent days, people under the age of 30 who have had the COVID-19, there's repercussions and after effects. People are experiencing a lot of blood clotting, which is leading to strokes. This is in people under 30. So people are still dying from the secondary residual effects that we're only just now learning about. So there was a great period of unsureness around COVID, its effects, its after effects. Could you be reinfected once you had it once? If you had any sort of comorbidity issues like, diabetes or hypertension, high blood pressure, you were very much at high risk, which added to the worry and stress for a lot of people. And it's just debilitating feelings that lack of autonomy, that lack of socialization bring. And socialization and mental health issues are unquestionably linked. There's been plenty of studies done to show that if you're in that hermit stage, everything else falls apart. As I touched on previously, if you don't have sort of a set routine to your life, everything just sort of melts away. The days melt into each other, and it's very difficult to get back. You'll find yourself not waving but drowning. So that middle period of lockdown, when it started to kick in, all the routines had gone, all the bad feelings and negative behaviors had started to come back, and then it felt like it was going on and on and on. And well, I have to say that brought me quite low. But let's move on to the next point, and we'll pick up as it goes along and try and get a little bit more cheerful and optimistic, because there's always a way. There's always a way out of these things. So then we got to the stage where restrictions started to be eased, and you were able to start coming out of that insulated state and begin readjusting. You were able to leave the house for longer. There was a social bubbles. Some shops started opening, so you're able to, get back out and try and rebuild the routines you lost. Now, it takes a lot of determination, a lot of perseverance. You've got to want it. But it's learning to cope in a world beginning to return to sort of quote-unquote normal. When you were able to start re-establishing those routines, it was maybe twice as difficult as it had been previously, because you were in that state of heightened anxiety, depression. You were able to get back out again, but things still weren't quite the same as had been previously. Social distancing, wearing masks. It was a period of readjustment, but as I said, with some, a little bit of moxie, you could start rebuilding who you were prior to this. And of course, there was also the macro level of stress, the stress that everybody was feeling across society, because all of society suffers due to the economic pressures. Small businesses, some could reopen, some couldn't. People felt a great uncertainty about their jobs and maintaining employment. So there was this hum, this throb of low-level anxiety going through everyone. And if you'd experienced mental health problems previously, you were familiar with it, but there was so many people coming to terms with how we live day to day for the first time, because they hadn't been in those situations, hadn't faced those difficulties and pressures prior. So overall, it was still a very shaky time. Even though things were getting back to where they were, people were still very uncertain of what shape the future would take. Now, this leads into point 4, and that's generally all about, you have to stay optimistic. You have to strive to improve despite, as I've said, the uncertain journey back to what we knew. You have to push yourself to get to a place where you can start to become comfortable again. It's about maintaining your equilibrium with mental health. We're still stuck indoors some of the time. Not everything has reopened. We're still in a very nascent transitory stage, really, to be honest. So really the tips that I'm offering for combating isolation are, it helps to stay socially connected via technology. As I said earlier, it's not a real substitute for being with people, for being face to face, but it is something that gives you a chance to communicate, ask for help, find out how other people have been sort of helping themselves, because nobody's got all the answers. Everybody comes up with different solutions, and the sharing of ideas is important. We need to come together and be cohesive as a group, caring about each other and learning from each other to combat these difficulties. Now, as we've mentioned in a few prior videos, exercising regularly, whether it's just 10 minutes of moderate exercise, or whether you can get out and walk or bike for an hour or work out at home, keeping up with your hobbies and interests are very important. You've got to try and stay occupied, stay focused, and keep the black dog off your back. Another good way to reduce stress in terms of information in the news, there's been so many conflicting sort of reports and articles on social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. So seek a practical, credible source of information, something you can trust, and only access it at a specific time of the day. Maybe take an hour every day, tea time, check the news from a trusted, reliable source, something that's verified as trustworthy. See what's been going on, catch up with the events, and then really just get on with your day. I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say here is this situation has been so taxing, but it's going to be a real test of who you are, what you want, and what you're made of. You have to push, you have to try. Staying in touch with friends, staying in touch with organizations, keeping yourself occupied in a way that's beneficial both to your health, physically and mentally, and preserving your sanity through the information that you take in. I hope this has been some help. My anecdotal experiences, maybe you've felt the same way or have been going through the same things. We here at Anxious Minds, we're always there for you, whether it's telephone counselling, when things get back to normal, coming in doing face-to-face counselling, and the media that we'll put out. Remember, it's okay not to be okay. I've been Randal. Till next time, take care of yourselves and each other.